Welcome to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, your guide to good food, good health, and a good life. And now, here's your host, Nutrition Network advisor and author of the Nourishment Mindset, Dixie Huey.
All right, y'all, welcome to or back to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, where we are on a metabolic mission to help people achieve vitality and reverse chronic lifestyle conditions. How do we do it? Real whole foods, sound healing practices, and the pleasures of the table. Thank you so much to those of you who have already supported me, either by reviewing this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google Play. Also, for those who've left Amazon reviews, it tickles me pink, as we would say in the South, and it also helps spread the word. We just simply have too many people who are suffering, and that is my ultimate goal, is to share the news of how some of us have improved our health using the aforementioned 3 principles. So today I have a very special guest. Before I became a metabolic health and fitness coach, I worked for 20 years in the wine industry. So some of my favorite people to hang out with are farmers, chefs, and winemakers. And today I have Tom Scannell, who is a farmer in Lee County, which is just above me. I live in Collier County. We're both in South Florida. We met when I was on a camping trip with my family on Pine Island. It was Memorial Day 2020, and I rode my bike past this farm, and I went, oh my gosh. My husband was like, great, now we're going to spend half the vacation at this farm, and she's going to be annoying the hell out of this guy, like asking him about his soil practices. And in short, we had a blast. And you, Tom, introduced me to one of my favorite books of all time. I think you gave this to me, actually. It's Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being a guest today.
Well, thanks for having me, Dixie, and thanks for your purpose and what you're doing, because it's sorely needed. And we are metabolically dying. It's evident everywhere, and yet people are still going through the drive-throughs. I don't understand it, but hopefully with people like you educating, I think the key is education.
Well, and also the key is those nourishing whole foods. So tell us about Pineshine. One of my favorite things, other than just the experience of being there and the food itself, are your corny jokes on your Friday emails.
Oh,
like last week, hamnesia.
yeah. Well, that's I'll do to Joanna, my right hand, my right brain. So she comes up with those. So my sense of humor is limited, unfortunately, but she's got a great sense of humor. But Pineshine Farms was established 7 or 8 years ago, and I've been a farmer my whole life. Soil science and chemistry major at the University of Wisconsin. I was a crop farmer for 2 decades, raising cotton, rice, soybeans, corn, wheat. And so I was literally raised and educated and indoctrinated with the Monsanto spoon in my mouth. And I didn't really know any different. And it was production economics, it was economy of scale, and it was maximum profitability, regardless of the resources that you were utilizing or exploiting. I pivoted into the nursery business and moved to Florida, and grew the largest bougainvillea nursery in the country for about 18 years. Started a fertilizer business during that path, as a result of not being able to find any really nutrient-dense food products for my plants that made them thrive. It's kind of a niche, bougainvillea. So we did that, and then did other species-specific products as well, still doing that. And that pivoted me into the human health component. And this farm over here, which was a citrus grove, got canker. Then we transitioned to nursery. When I sold the nursery, it was kind of about the same time that forced mandatory health insurance came out, and I said no, no, no. And so I thought, well, I better start taking better care of myself because I can't afford to get ill. And so that's when I dove down the rabbit hole of health and regenerative agriculture. And I literally went 180 degrees because I had my first soybean crop when I was 17 years old. And
Wow.
so I didn't know any different. But then I did, or I started to begin to learn not only through functional medicine, biodynamics, Joel Salatin, and Michael Pollan, all these people that I've discovered and am grateful for teaching me and putting out like you're putting out with your stuff. And I've just come 180. And so I like to use the term beyond organic farm because organic has been bastardized by definition, just like so many things are these days in the mainstream. They just change the definition, whether it's a recession or a vaccine. Like who knows what it actually. So I like to use the word regenerative agriculture, and where and I really like it's all about health, your health, the animal's health, the environment's health. And for me personally, because of the way I was brought up and my mother, it's about beauty. I think beauty is as important as love in our lives and in our landscapes. And I don't think we could survive without it. And it transcends religions, borders, economies, cultures, everything. Beauty is so important, and I'm all about beauty in every way. And then finally, permanence. Like, uh, we have these resources and we're using them, but we're not really quantifying them. And so when you go to Costco and buy your ham from China, you it's just price. We somehow, and I don't know what the answer is, but people need to realize, or somehow we need to incorporate the true cost of that product. You know,
Definitely.
so that's a lot I just said, and I apologize. I'll ramble, but so yeah, it's about beauty, it's about permanence, and yeah, yeah.
I love it. That is not an elevator speech. That is from the heart.
That
20
is,
years in PR, you haven't memorized my note cards. So good, because I used to tell my clients, I don't want it memorized. It's got to come from the heart.
yeah,
So Pineshine, my experience there, I mean, first and foremost, you talk about beauty of the landscape. I mean, it is gorgeous there, so natural, but also so many different kinds of animals. When I was there, I remember you had piglets, is that, I mean, that's what they're called in Charlotte's Web. You had a mama pig who had just given birth, and it was stunning to just see nature in front of us. So tell us about what you elevate. Is it mostly animals? That's my understanding, but are you growing other produce as well?
right. So yeah, I've been in plants my whole life, and um, when I kind of transitioned out of that commercial agriculture, um, I I had always wanted to do the animal agriculture, and and then I learned about the regenerative, and so one of my goals was to figure out how how to create profit on a small enterprise in farming, which is difficult. And I wanted to do animals because of the rabbit holes I'd been diving down in the health sector with elimination diets, uh, keto, carnivore, nutrient dense foods, and the downsides of vegetables, of oxalates and phytic acids, and of course glutens um, and lectins, and all these anti-nutrients, and actually kind of insecticides that plants use to protect themselves, that we're imbibing and causing all kinds of trouble. And anyway, so I'm like, okay, let's do the meat thing in a humane way, in a small scale, profitable way, in a way that keeps it local. Let's decentralize agriculture.
Mm.
That's a big thing I'm interested in. Not only to make your community more resilient, but to make the country more resilient, to make your health more resilient. I mean, people spend more time choosing their mechanic than they do where their
Mm.
food comes from. Do you know?
True. Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like they take better care of their car than their body. And you can replace that engine, but I don't know. I don't think I want a heart transplant or anything. So it, anyways, that's how it all began. And so I experimented with a bunch of different species for profitability, ease of production, and after about 3 or 4 years of doing everything from ducks to layers to chickens to turkeys, cows, pigs, um, I came to the conclusion, and I came up against the constraint of, and I'm a farmer, I'm not a marketer. So, if I had, gotten a master's in marketing from somewhere, maybe I could have done a better job. But I would get these Costco, Walmart people, and if there was a crack in the conversation, I would I learned that you can't change people's minds unless
Mm.
there's an opening to have the discussion. And so one of my lines I would like to say is, what price cancer? Right. So, you always hear the thing where, oh, he works his whole life or she works her whole life. She has a family, she makes money, she retires at 65 or 70 and wants to live life and loses her health. And so my point is, like you said, thy food is thy medicine, Hippocrates. There's nothing more important, really, personally, to me, to community, to resiliency, to national security, if you want to take it there, than food. And it ties us culturally on a religious, we come together to break bread. I mean, how profound can we go there forever? And so, yeah, your body will heal itself. It's the only thing that can heal you, but you have to give it what it needs. So regenerative agriculture, I think, is the way to go, because not only does it heal a community, not only does it heal the body, but it heals the soil, it heals the land.
Yes.
And I want to fix things. I love to restore cars. I love to restore homes. I love to restore farms. And so if you can take that pasture and grow that grass and make those roots go deep, and we call it mob grazing, where we have paddocks and we move the cows every day or every other day or every third day, depending on the time of year. And they sit there and they eat everything, not just the dessert, right? The most palatable grass. They end up eating everything, and they're walking around and they're defecating and urinating, and it's all going in the ground. And the same when you raise chickens, you move them every day. And so it's this intense, kind of like it used to happen in nature when um, we went westward and explored the diaries of those guys. They would talk about, carrier pigeons blotting the sun
Yes.
for hours, and then where they would light for the night, the next morning there would be 3 or 4 inches of manure, just and so they're just trying to mimic nature, and the whole concept of ruminants, especially, here are these beautiful beings, ruminants, that can take sunlight, and we grow grass from sunlight. But long story short, you can take sunlight and make proteins and
It's
amino acids,
incredible.
and then we're fortunate enough to eat, to have them, and they die for us.
Right.
And I don't know if that's an interpretation or a literal statement in the Bible, but I disagree with that. I think we are a higher formed species, more cognitive ability, and it's our duty. There's no better mentor of the land than a farmer, because he's typically preserving it for his family, for the next generation. And so, um, we have a duty to protect those non-renewable resources, that soil, that thin veneer that covers the earth, that without it we would not exist. And we're just destroying it. We're monoculturing it. We're fumigating it. We're not rotational uh, grazing it or cropping it. And glyphosate is literally like the nitrogen cycle now in chemistry or in the environment. The glyphosate gets sprayed, it goes in the ground, it gets evaporated, and then it's rained on, like in your yard, on you, on your children. And glyphosate interrupts this amino acid process of making aminos in your gut. And we wonder why we're all sick and diabetic and obese, and it's no wonder.
Right.
And so I
We're
just
interrupting nature. That's,
yeah,
and
yeah,
your explanation is fabulous. I'm just thinking of this circle of life, and we have sort of stuck a pin in the balloon circle, and it's just sort of slowly coming down. And but it sounds like there's a way to improve. I mean, you're someone who's made a 180. I had to make a 180 in the way that I approached food and nutrition. I was always in that fat is horrible, animal foods you should really minimize, yada yada, but I was not vital. I was not well. It's two authors. You may be aware of Nina Teichel's Big Fat
oh,
Surprise. Yeah, what a work of art. 10 years only it took her. And then Dr. Kate Shanahan's Deep Nutrition. Those two really helped me see the light, and ended up leaving my wine industry and having a professional midlife crisis, which was totally worth it. But it reminded me, I was reminded of that process that I had to go through when you talked about your upbringing and how you had to literally do a 180. And it's like this feeling, I imagine, if it's similar to my experience, like I can't unsee this truth. I literally have to uproot myself, leave my industry, close my marketing agency, and do this. So I'm curious. And a lot of people told me that I was crazy for doing that. But that kind of talk to me just sort of spurs me on, quite frankly. So I'm curious for you, did you have naysayers, challengers, any pushback from your 180?
Sure, absolutely, including my internal dialogue, like, are you an idiot, Tom, or what? But I was, life is interesting as we evolve and pivot and grow and fall down. I like to call it failing forward. And, I really subscribe to a philosophy that, perhaps you don't really learn unless you fail, unless you err. If you're doing everything right, whatever, you're not learning much. But
Pretty
so
boring.
I like failing forward, and I like pushing that envelope. But yeah, people um have always doubted me in my endeavors. I mean, I'm a farmer. I grew up in upper middle class, Midwest, Ivy League, boarding school. I was slated for, a profession of, martini weekends and golf courses. And I rejected that wholeheartedly at about
Sure did.
13 years old. And so that's kind of been my life story. And like you just alluded to, um, often what sparks my ATP, my mitochondria, my energy is people say you can't. Oh yeah? Well, watch. So I actually love that. You know, I love that. And I thank them for it. I'm grateful for those people in my life, and because it just makes me stronger. So yeah, always, and I cherish it. You know,
I
so
love it. Fail forward. That is not only great business advice, but I can see myself stealing that from you and saying that to my son next time we have a
well, it
life
wasn't.
challenge.
I read that somewhere. I've come up with absolutely
Well, you're
nothing.
sharing the news, so thank you. So
Yeah.
Tom, let's switch gears a little bit. What has been your greatest surprise about farming, and maybe specific to Pineshine? What's been an unexpected there?
I guess it's been my awakening, as I'm growing with my education, with business, as I age and gain the wisdom of time and truth, and how we've lost the ability as a society to think critically and
Mm,
question everything. Love or hate Ronald Reagan, but he said trust but verify. I kind of like that. And
mm.
especially in today's world, I've been really um, flabbergasted by the notion that everything we've been taught, for the last 60, 70 years in science, commercial agriculture, um, even history, um, the victor writes the history books, right? Um,
Sure.
has been wrong, has not been true. And we're beginning, whether it's Nina or Joel Salatin or um, Robert Kennedy Jr. Is we're finding these truths, and so I was very naive in that. uh, I thought what I learned from PubMed or Lancet was true, or Stanford University, or you know uh, our political leaders, whatever it might be. I thought it was, I could take it as fact. Nope. No, you got to look at look behind the scenes. Who's funding the food industry? Who's funding big pharma?
Big one.
Um, the revolving door between the government and big pharma or big ag. The meat processors. There's four meat processors that control like over 90% of the meat industry.
So
One of them's from
wrong.
China, one of them's from Brazil, and the other two are multinationals. And so there's that. And then there's the chemical industry, which is intertwined with big pharma. It's Bayer and BASF, and then there's two others. And then it's the food industry where there's lots of brands out there, but there's just four or five big players like Kraft and
Right. The
Coca-Cola
conglomerates.
and PepsiCo. And they're not in our best interest. They're exploiting us. They're using us. I always like the health paradigm today, in that big medicine, and these poor doctors that get educated, and I think they mean well, and some of them are thinking critically, most of them are not. But we don't want Dixie to die. We just need you to be sick for the next 40 years, whether it's autoimmune disease or diabetes or whatever. We have a pill that will mask the symptoms, won't cure you, won't go to the why, but it's very profitable. In fact, we don't want to know why, because that would end it and we would fix Dixie. So um, I, that's been my biggest thing, is just kind of how as it unfolds, as it continues to unfold, how horrible it actually is.
So much bigger 30,000 plus foot view than wow. Chickens are a pain in the ass sometimes. On one hand, you said your biggest surprise about farming, I likened it to this 30,000 foot view deal, because it wasn't, oh, the chickens are a pain in the butt. It's more how much is wrong and how much you have had to do that 180. And so I'm just wondering, that's a heavy thing to realize, that so much of what you've been taught is just frankly false, and that it's all these conglomerates, all this control, all this follow the money. So that's heavy, right? That doesn't feel great, I imagine.
No,
I have
no.
similar as it relates more to the food industry. But what do you do with that weight, that heaviness? How do you take that and create something that you can feel good about there at Pineshine Farms?
Yeah. So, um, um, like we talked about earlier, I've always kind of been outside the cultural norm, and so I like to do things differently, and I like to rebel, and so I think um, one of my acts of rebellion is to be as healthy as I can, to live as long a quality of life as I can. And that is my primary current mission right now. And it just um, translates into food and agriculture as a result. But like, you know, for example, my latest endeavor is a cold plunge. So I have a freezer out here. It's at 41 degrees. I go in it for 9 to 12 minutes
Ooh,
once or twice a day. And
yeah.
the neoepinephrine and the dopamine that hits my brain, Dixie, I kid you not, besides the physical, the shock proteins and all the good things that happen to your body, the constriction of heart, besides all that stuff, the physiological, the mental, I come out of that thing and I'm so happy.
Yeah, there's
And
no drug in the world that's going to make you feel that good, right?
oh, and I do a sauna every morning. And again, it's that blue to black, right? Like, okay, it's hot as hell in here. It's getting difficult. I'm pouring, but I'm going into new territory. I haven't been here before. I'm doing it. It's great. It's good for my body. I have a pulse meter in there. I put it on my index
Mm.
finger and my heart rate's at 140 beats a minute. Wait a minute. I'm reading a book. I'm sitting in a sauna and I'm getting cardio. Do you know of anything in the world, big pharma, food, anything that could reduce overall mortality by 40% if you did it 19 minutes, 4 times a week?
Goodness
Any
gracious, no, not, and I'm a fitness instructor. I don't know. I mean,
sauna,
maybe exercise sort of touches that, but I don't know.
sauna,
Wow. So those
infrared
Nordic
sauna.
countries know a little something, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
No
yeah.
wonder they're the happiest people on the planet. I was in Denmark over the holidays and it was real. These people were nice. They were trim. They were riding their bikes in the freezing cold rain and snow. And
Yeah.
everyone was in a good mood, it seems. So,
Well, the
vive the
doctor,
sauna.
the doctor I learned all the cold stuff from is a lady. She's actually from Sri Lanka, but she lives in Denmark and's done all her studies there. And we're just scratching the surface. And
Indeed.
this is no pill, this is no side effects. This is, anyways, so that's kind of what I'm doing now. But I wanna, you know, I'm very frustrated in that, and I'm sure you are too, in that how can we change the world? How can we make it better? How can we make people realize, these non-renewable resources that you're buying at Costco and Walmart, you're not paying for, and they're not going to be there anymore. And so, what's going to happen to your children or grandchildren? And 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 how do we incorporate the true cost of shipping pickles from India or whatever it may be? So. I want to change the world. I want localized regenerative agriculture to be doable. But
Right.
and some people are doing it, but it's very, very hard. And the ones that are really good, like White Oak Pastures up in Georgia. I mean, it's
Sure.
it's a large farm. It's several thousand acres, and he's got a scale going, and a large capital investment. I was trying to avoid that, but the victory gardens we had during the war, up to 40% of all produce was grown by you and me.
I did not
Uh,
know that. That's
yeah,
not so long ago.
no, victory gardens, and we did it, and it was healthier, it was local, less environmental impact. Like, why can't we do that? Grass, lawns in America. More resources are spent on American lawns than any other agricultural industry in the world. We
Oh,
put more
man.
phos we put more phosphates on lawns than the entire nation of India uses. I mean, lawns, yeah, they're pretty, but does that really make sense? Like,
Gosh.
why? And another example I have, I got it just I love it. It's you know romaine lettuce or bib lettuce. I use romaine lettuce. So you know romaine lettuce is grown out in, say, California, monocultured. You plow the soil, you fumigate it, kills everything, right? It's completely sterile. You plant your crops, you put plastic on it, you put down drip line irrigation, you irrigate and you spray. And you probably spray once a week minimum. Then you harvest this romaine lettuce, chop it, you flash refrigerate it, you put it in a tractor trailer and drive it across the country, say to the Collier County Publix. And then they go in and buy it and they pay whatever, $4 or $5 for a couple things of romaine lettuce. And what did you get? You got 98% water, almost no nutrient density. And what did it cost? Which is a non-renewable. It's going to be gone in about 20 years. The largest aquifer, I think, in the United States, a non-renewable resource. Where all the pesticides, all the diesel fuel, all the labor, all the refrigeration, and you bought something that has no value.
Certainly
Like
not
what?
to your body,
Yeah. Or to what?
not the environment.
No. So, there's things like that that really frustrate me that I wish people would. I don't know. I don't know how to fix it, but I know what the problem is. I just don't know how to fix it.
Well, it seems to me one simple way to at least start, and as let's say you're a family and you're used to shopping at the Publix, I'm about 2 miles from one right now, is do some research as to who are your local farmers. So here on Marco Island, we have, they're in Naples, but they come down to our farmers market. It's Ignoni Organic Farm. So we do a farm share, and it's a really cool thing because you give the farmer the money up front, and then they will bring us the farmer's selection for the week. And I like knowing who the farmer is, and I also like playing with my kids. So I will buy a conventional tomato, cherry tomato, and then I will put it on a plate next to, it's sort of like my old wine tasting days, blind tasting. This is blind tomato tasting. And every time he will go to the organic local farm, if it's tomato, if it's whatever.
Yeah.
And so he's a kid. He doesn't, it's a game to him, but it's semi-fascinating to me. It shouldn't be, right? Because of course it tastes better. But I think the simple step someone could take is to know your local farmer. And so, whoever is raising meat, eggs, I often drive up about an hour up to Seed to Table to get raw milk, which is not exactly a local farmer, but he's driving in to deliver it. You have raw milk too, don't you? You're a delivery site. So tell us about what you're a local farmer for some. So what do you have specifically that you are offering people who want to support this movement, to know your farmer, support your community and the environment?
Sure. So we have our primary product is the grass-raised, grass-finished, no antibiotic, no growth hormone beef, and that's our primary product. It's a different animal, no pun intended, in that it's much leaner.
Yep.
We can't finish an animal in 16 or 17 months. It takes 2 years. It's a much stronger flavor. We like to dry age it when we can, not wet age it like you'll find in all the supermarkets our entire lives. It's not as marbled. So it's a different, it's what beef used to taste like. Um, um, and it's a lot healthier. It has the CLAs, the conjugated linoleic acids, it's grown, raised, and harvested right here. And then we have seasonally. We used to do pork all the time. The red wattles, which are a heirloom type pig, and pasture raised. And now we just do them seasonally. Again, because of the economics. And we don't do layers anymore. With layers, you have to go out there minimum 2 times a day, whether you have 100 layers or 1,000. And it's about the same cost. And again, another severe frustration on my part. People can go into Walmart and buy like 24 or 36 eggs for $8 or $9. And I mean, I can't raise a dozen eggs for $8 or $9. The pork, the chicken, and the beef. And then we have, you know, all the cuts and we like to have tallow and lard as much as we can, but sometimes we get it from the processor. Sometimes they don't get it for us. And of course, bones, and offal. The whole nose to tail
That's
movement.
organ meats, y'all. Awful. And it's not
Yeah.
AWFUL, it's OFFAL, and it's super nutrient dense. And talk about a good use of budget. It's
Yes.
cheaper usually than other
Yes.
meat.
Yes. And again, in nature, when you go out and you know you hunt or you see nature in action, what's the first thing a coyote or a wolf or goes after when they kill their prey? They don't eat the shoulder or the hind. They go for the organs, the liver, the heart, the brain, the lungs, and then often they'll leave. If they're satiated, they leave that for the whoever comes behind them. And again, Lewis and Clark, when they would go out west, they'd kill a caribou or something, depending on the time of season. If they were too lean, they wouldn't even eat them. They left them for the dogs. They didn't want them because it's all about the fat. That is where the energy is. That's where those fatty acids are. That's where it's at. And I don't know how we got so far off of that trail, but
oh goodness, I rip I rip a new one in my book regarding that trail.
yeah.
Fat is where it's at, y'all. That's
Yeah.
the right kind of fat, of course, right?
Yeah.
Right kind of fat. So I'm curious, Tom, you have all these wonderful products, y'all. When we left there, it was we had to go buy a cooler because we were staying in our RV, and RVs are not known for having a lot of space for anything. That's part of their charm. But we went and bought a cooler and filled it with ice and then drug it all home. And
we do have dairy products. We partner with a dairy farm in North Florida. And so we have raw milk, raw cheese, Gouda cheese. We have raw cottage cheese, which is amazing, butter, and sometimes butter, ice creams. So I can't, like the cold plunge, I can't overemphasize the benefits of raw milk and how frustrating it is that we have to get people to sign a document that says it's for animal
pet,
use.
yes, pet,
Yeah.
yes. My Newfoundland drinks a lot of raw milk, let me tell you. He's just a huge fan. He actually does like it, but I'm the one drinking it.
Yeah. Well, in Germany, and Western Europe, they actually have raw milk clinics to heal
Really?
people of, ulcerative colitis or, leaky gut syndrome, autoimmune stuff. Yeah, clinics for raw milk. Yeah.
Isn't that terrific? Well, and if y'all think about it, it makes sense. For millennia, people have been, real milk really is what it is, non-denatured milk. The fact that we're doing all this ultra processing in the name of safety, it's the same argument when it comes to harvesting animals, right? It's got to be safe. It's got to be in this huge facility, which that's just a means for control. That word safe is a trigger word for me because it usually means there's something nefarious happening behind it.
And you're right, Dixie. Everyone is living out of fear, I'm finding, and they want to be safe. And I take it to the nth degree. You want to be safe? Just go to jail. You'll get a cot and 3 square meals a day, and you'll be safe. Is that really what we want by our controllers, by our government, manage mind to control us? Like, no, I don't. I'm a freedom fighter. I want independence. I'm a Thoreau Emerson guy. Leave us alone. We're smart. We know what to put in our mouths. You have to tell me what I can put in my mouth. Like you said, real milk was a thing forever until we started industrialization and urbanization, and we did not know, and so we got into trouble with bacteria and disease in urban and long-term non-refrigerated places. But that's all it was.
It's not the milk, it's the
Oh,
method of
it's
getting
us.
the milk. Yeah,
Yeah.
as usual, right? I do
Right.
like to, sometimes I just sit and I look at nature, and it just so, I mean, we're surrounded by nature in Florida and many other places in our wonderful country, but I just look and I go, what other like species has trouble feeding itself? And it's just like the most basic thing for a life form, and yet we just screw it up. I mean, and yes, I understand from your point of view, from like a nourishment point, you know, how the, you know, we have this gift of these animals that turn sunshine into protein, and then we're able to benefit from that. But I often say, look at a cow and go, they are so much smarter than we are. We're just mucking up the basics.
They are. They are. I love it. I love it. And you know, you look at a predatory bird like an eagle or a hawk, and we have a lot out here, and you know, they know what to do. They're not starving. They're not fat.
Nope.
They're
They
not
certainly don't
medical.
have type 2 diabetes.
You know, they're not eating seed oils. You know, so yeah, you're right. You're right.
So back to you. Do y'all ship, or does one need to come to beautiful Pine Island, Florida?
Well, again, that's one of our constraints. I mean, the beauty of Pine Island is it hasn't been developed yet, really. It's still mostly
It
agriculture,
is
and it's
natural.
and it's an island in the Gulf of Mexico on the same latitude as if you go to the East Coast, Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago. So we have that benefit. If you go to the south, Sanibel's completely built out, or it was before Ian, and
Okay.
Boca Grande's to the north, and North Captiva is just a stone throw from the farm. So this is like the last bastion. And what's beautiful is Cape Coral is just like unbridled growth, but you cross over Matlacha and onto Pine, and it's like the Keys was 40 years
It
ago.
is going back in time. I love how
Yeah,
chill the vibe is there.
yeah. But the constraint is it's on the way to nowhere, right? Like it's going down a dead end kind of. But yeah, we shipped in the beginning, you know, dried ice, FedEx, all that stuff. But again, we didn't have the scale for it or the labor or the time, and it kind of violated kind of one of my things was local.
True.
So
You're
we
a
just said,
man who's true to his integrity, I think.
well, I'm not doing this for the money. You know, I'm not. I'm trying to create a model that people will buy into, and I failed, but I'm still trying, and
Well,
I'm
you're
trying to.
failing forward, I believe. So what I'm hearing is that I need to get back in my RV and come on up to that campground and spend another weekend up there. And for all y'all who like to travel, and I feel like after being cooped up for a few years, people are hot to travel trot. It sounds like a visit back in time to beautiful Pine Island is in order to go and check out Pineshine Farms. And I did want to tell you before I forget, I don't know if it's gonna, yeah, there we go. You mentioned being a rebel. I don't know if you can read my tattoo.
I see it, but I can't read it. What's it
So
say?
it says rebel, and it's spelled with
Okay.
an extra L and E. That is what we named our deceased now chocolate Newfoundland. And I wanted to get this tattoo ever since she passed away, but I just, something in me like, Southern girl and tattoos.
Yeah.
But really, I didn't have the draw. And when I finally decided to do it, it doesn't just mean about my fabulous dog. It means much more. So it turned out I needed to have a more compelling reason to print that on myself. And it was this idea of, I am going to go literally against the grain, and it's going to suck a lot of the time, and I'm going to be called crazy and all of this stuff on a much smaller scale perhaps than you, but that's what I needed, because to me, I get to choose what I consume with my body, my mind, and I will not let anyone force me to consume something I don't want to. So this rebel tattoo stands for a lot more. It was birthed by the idea of this perfect chocolate Newfoundland, but I think you know what I mean there. So we're fellow rebels.
Yeah. And hey, in that vein, Dixie, I just want to mention, because you spelled
Please.
rebel ELLE, like the feminine rebel.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed in my path, and especially it brought it to light over the weekend. Dr. McCullough had a big gathering of folks at his headquarters in Cape Coral. It was mostly the anti-vax thing, but what I've really noticed, and in our society today, whether it's school boards or personal health or freedom, you know who's leading the charge? Not men, women like you.
Interesting. Well,
it's women who are going to the school boards. It's women who are the anti-vaxxers, who started the National Vaccine Information Corp or whatever it is. It's women that have the courage to stand up and rebel and contest and question. The men, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or it's a toxin thing.
endotoxins, estrogenic environments.
Yes, yeah, the plastics that are in our oceans and in our bloodstream, and or if it's social media where you read like in Japan they're not even interested in dating anymore. You're 18
There
years
is
old.
some really bizarre stuff going on.
Yeah, so
with that.
I just want to shout out. I love strong women, and the country. They're the only ones standing up right now. It seems like strong.
Well, on behalf of females everywhere, thank you. And we like strong men, and especially those who raise amazing food that helps us all heal and become strong. So thank you. But I will share that the first thing I thought of when you said that is these are probably mama bears, especially the ones at the, you don't mess with mama bear. Not out in the wild, not at the school meeting.
No, it's in their DNA.
So that may be sprinkled into it. But Tom, I appreciate what you're doing so much. I loved how you answered the questions and you went up into the sky, and you can just tell you have so much passion for what you do, and such a drive, such a I can almost feel the force. And if y'all are watching on YouTube, you see that he is wearing a shirt that says free. But if you're not, I just want to point this out. And if you're watching, you also see that Tom looks like he might be a competitive bodybuilder. So I have to ask, from a fitness instructor to someone who looks like he could, lift and bench press a cow, like is this all from working the land, or are you
no
a fitness competitor?
Actually, my physical duties on the farm are kind of minimal as of late, as I pivot into try to figure out what my next path is. But we have a CrossFit club on the farm. Up front we have a container and CrossFit stuff, and every day at 5 p.m. we do CrossFit up front. And then I do, I'm a longevity biohacker freak. And have you ever heard of True Diagnostic, Dixie?
No, do tell.
They do a DNA methylation test to determine your biological age.
Oh boy. Truth test.
Yeah. And they also have a metric that determines your rate of aging. And so my biggest takeaway from my last True Diagnostic is I'm 61, but I'm 44. Whoa. I'm 44 biologically, and I am aging according to them and their metrics and their algorithms. I'm aging for every year. I'm aging about a little less than a half a year.
Whoa.
So what you're doing, everything you said, getting rid of seed oils, rest and recovery, sunlight, exercise, nutrient dense food, all that stuff. It works.
True. Well, you're living proof. If y'all are listening on Apple, Spotify, etc., just pop over to YouTube and check him out because this dude does not look 61.
Well, I don't have any hair, but that's because I have 7 daughters.
That's 7 daughters. Yeah, well, that'll do. Right? But you still got that smile. Thank you so much, Tom. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. Next time my family and I are up there, I hope we will have more chance to discuss. So thank you
Well,
so much.
Thanks for considering me, Dixie. It's an honor.